As I tried to state in my previous video, I combined everything that I specifically did throughout the months of May and June, and then split it up based off of category and not month. So I'm still doing two videos, just two separate videos for these 2 months. Even trying to explain it now doesn't make sense. And we're only the second video in. As the previous video was mainly about what I was able to physically get accomplished, this video is going to be more about things that I had to process throughout that time. But before we get into that, because I was just reminded of it, hi, I'm your local internet friend, aka Toki, and I almost forgot to do my own intro. Now, back to the original idea for today. The first thing I'm going to be talking about is not something I actually had time to process throughout the month of May because I was so focused on creating, but it's something I had to work on processing mainly through the month of June. And that is, there are two types of confidence: standard and working. Let me explain. Your standard confidence is essentially more solidified and directly linked to your own self-respect, how you respect yourself. So it's the boundaries that you put in place either for yourself or for other people, what you will or will not tolerate. While the working confidence specifically comes from your self-image, how you specifically see yourself versus how you recognize other people see you, or how you think other people see you. Adding on to that, while my standard confidence is solid, that's why it's standard, my working confidence needs work. And the second one on the list is something I ended up talking about throughout my Luna's Vision, The Greatest Illusion project, and that is the idea of having to move on from processing or healing through your trauma. Is difficult, but the hardest part of it is where you go from there. What I wrote was, moving forward and always was the hardest thing about healing trauma. So like, you have the processing through everything that happened to you, and then you also have a lot of the emotions that come up from mentally processing it, and then all of the physical exertion from having to emotionally process it. But once you get through that, now you have to stop yourself from going into a mental spiral about it. Especially if you're working on processing through it and you're still around the people that essentially, if not were the cause, was definitely a contributing factor. Because like, if some of it still is happening, you have to go ahead and figure out, well, what to do about it happening. My main focus for this year, I don't know if I said this in any of my update videos, but my main focus for this year was to figure out a way to move past the trauma I have already processed through. And up to this point, I've had to deal with many experiences that have brought me to, yeah, that's not as easy as it sounds. And also recognizing from other people I've observed, some people don't even recognize that that's a choice. Other people just choose not to, because why should they? And like, respect, I guess. But like all of the things that require you to be able to move on or move forward from the trauma you've processed or healed from. Even that itself is just like mentally and emotionally taxing. Especially with neurodivergence and a certain type of neurodivergent experience where you're recognizing all of the small little details that have to go into doing so, and like all of the decision making and how that is mentally taxing, which actually leads me into one, the reason as to why I put those two in that order, and two, an entire list that I made thinking about what I would need to remind myself when it comes to moving forward. The first thing I said in a previous video, but rest and to recharge are two separate things for me. For anything that triggers, there's no set time or amount of time to be able to quote unquote get over it. Like eventually you'll become numb or indifferent to it, but like even that, there's no set time for that. This one's a more personal one, but things might take more time than you think. Plan accordingly. I focus more on sustainability than anything else. The next one on the list is something I just read and was reminded of as I was reading it. If it was through the subconscious you were hurt, if it was through the subconscious that you were hurt, it would be through the subconscious you must heal, which is easier said than done because it requires bravery and commitment to take risks. New doesn't have to be scary. Something else I was specifically told through like a collective tarot card reading on TikTok, but like I sit here and think about it constantly. You might have to do things that you are not prepared to do. Do it anyway. It's always a risk. And as I said earlier, the biggest part of healing, and honestly the hardest part of healing, is moving forward. Because anyone can just like stay in this headspace of, oh, this person hurt me, so I'm gonna do things this way, or even this person hurt me in this way, so I'm going to steer clear of people that are like this, that are similar to them, even though that might have not even been the problem. Overall, the moving on or moving forward part of healing requires for someone to be present within their own body as much as possible. And having to do that when I've essentially spent most of my childhood and a good portion of my adulthood up to this point trying to predict problems before they happen so I don't have to deal with them. It was the moving on or moving forward part that basically kept me from being able to do more. Hi. She decides to join us after all. Hi. To say what I was trying to say earlier, there are people in the hallway. The struggle of moving forward or moving on is what I was having to deal with in both May and June, but really affected me mentally in June, and was probably the main reason as to why I wasn't able to do as much as I wanted to when it came to learning more Korean. I created a system to help me with learning, And for the most part, I believe it works. And yeah, I think the only problem I was having to deal with in May was mainly catching a cold. And then like not being able to do much of anything for 2 days. Anyway, my next update video, the video for July, is going to be more of a retrospection of the last 6 to 7 months. I've been your local internet friend, aka Toki, and this is Toki and apparently Cheese. Say hi. Yeah, she just doesn't care. Well, at least this is me saying bye. Oh, okay. The way that I'm gonna have to do this is very funny because she has one of my hands hostage.